The StrutFit Show, bringing retail into the future.
Hello and welcome to the StrutFit Show. I'm your host, Ang Nair. I'm also the CEO of StrutFit, where our vision is the same as the vision for this show, to bring retail into the future. Every episode, I'll be joined by a guest who is leading or innovating in some part of the retail spectrum, from design to manufacturing to marketing and even to sales. We'll discuss trends, learnings, and ideas, and really try to figure out what the top performers in your field are doing. Along the way, we'll discover some lessons you can apply to your own career and hopefully even have some fun. All right, let's do it. Hello and welcome to the StrutFit Show. My name is Ang Nair. I'm the CEO and co-founder of StrutFit, and I'm joined here today by Hans Skovsgaard Summers. This is probably the coolest name I've come across because all three parts of your name are cool. You got like a German first name, a Swedish middle name, and then I think an English last name. It's just dope. I didn't even say what you do. So go-to-market sales lead at On. Thank you for joining me.
Correct. And first of all, good pronunciation, but slightly off with the regionality. It's actually Danish, but so if my mum's listening, then she'll probably send you an angry letter afterwards about that. But I'm the go-to-market sales lead at On Running, and I've been working there for just over a year now. But I know we know each other from before that, and we've done a bit of work together. So really excited to be on this podcast, the first podcast I've done actually. So let's kick it off.
Dope. Sounds good. So firstly, apologies to your mum for getting the regionality wrong. And let's get into it. So the premise of the show is really to get people who are doing cool stuff in different silos of retail, like having worked in retail, working in retail now, or retail adjacent, and also having worked at a footwear company. Like, I know there's lots of cool stuff happening, but if you're doing cool stuff in sales, which you're doing, like, even someone who's in just the next silo over in marketing won't really know what happens in sales, and you cross over a little bit, but they'll have no idea what's going on. And I think it's really cool to showcase what's happening. So why don't we start with, tell us about your role at On and what you get up to, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So yes, my role at On is go-to-market sales lead. So I lead the go-to-market sales team, and effectively what that means is that we manage all of the sales processes for all of our wholesale teams globally. So we operate directly across the world, many different markets, and we have On sales teams within those markets. And in order to set those sales teams up for success when they are going to be selling a new collection within a season, we plan, execute, and deliver everything that those sales teams are going to need to be successful. And that can range from a variety of things, from managing the seasonal calendar, digitizing a lot of our wholesale processes, and as well the provision of sales tools and resources in order to effectively make the sales team's lives as easy as possible. So we're a very cross-functional team. We operate across pretty much every business unit there is at On. So that's product design, development, marketing, supply chain, operations. So it's a very varied role, and we touch a lot of different parts of the business. But yeah, I guess you could say our ultimate objective is to set our wholesale teams up for success.
Okay, that is very comprehensive. What does success? Well, obviously, success for a sales team looks like, cool. You know, you've sold X number, or you've hit your target. I guess, what does that campaign look like that you're setting up for them? Yeah,
sure. So generally speaking, in the business model of wholesale. So when we say wholesale, what we're talking about is business to business sales. So our wholesale teams sell on products to other retailers who will then sell those products to the end consumer. And generally speaking, in the sports and fashion world, you work on a cyclical cycle, a cyclical seasonal cycle. So you either have, generally speaking, you'll have a spring summer season and a fall winter season. So you're basically selling in future collections that are going to launch.
What happens to autumn? Is autumn a part of winter? Is it just that cold in the Northern Hemisphere? I'm
using my more Americanized terminology. So autumn, winter, or fall, winter. So spring, summer, okay. Autumn, winter, fall, winter. Okay. So yeah, essentially, the main goal of the sales team is to sell those collections in with the best interests of their retailers and essentially those retailers' end customers. So every 6 months there will be a new collection to sell in. So, and generally speaking, you sell 6 months ahead of the product launch in store. So, for example, a spring summer season will launch in January, but the sales teams will be selling those collections in June of the previous year. And then a fall winter season will launch in July, but the sales teams will be generally selling those collections in sort of like 6 months before, so around January time. So if you like, you sort of need a bit of a crystal ball as well to look into the future. And a lot of like I say, the actual collections themselves. So even though we're selling them 6 months ahead of the time that they're going to launch, these collections and products need to already be designed and developed to their end state, if you like. So there's actually a much like longer process that goes on before the actual selling. So if you go into
how far back is that? Do they start designing that like a year before you're selling it to retailers? Because then all up, that's like 18 months before something even hits the market. The crystal ball has to see even further into the future.
Exactly. And it can vary. It can vary between brands and between products or categories. But yeah, generally speaking, a lead time would be anywhere from 12 months to even longer. It can be up to 24, 36 months before it's going to like launch on a shelf. But it varies vastly between brands and depends. So we sort of come on board around a year before the product is going to launch into a store, and the first sort of part of our team's role, I guess, is to start to prepare the sales teams for these sales campaigns. So giving them the insight into these products, making sure that they're trained on what the strategies are for the brand and for the category. Bringing together the marketing team as well to make sure that the sales teams are briefed on what campaigns we're going to use as a brand to support these products in the market. Like I say, it's all encompassing across all of the different functions within the business.
Awesome. So you've been at On for just over a year now. So you started at not quite the height, but that's sort of like mid-COVID, right? I imagine from my previous experience, what used to happen when I used to lead technology at Bobucks, and every year they would have a sales conference with their salespeople or distributors in Europe, and they would just fly over and take a bunch of samples with them and tell the story there. COVID happens, you can't do that anymore. What was it like for you starting this role during COVID, and then how did you guys sort of adapt and change for that environment?
Yeah, definitely, and I think the majority of my experience at On has actually been completely digital as well, because I mean we're still in lockdowns, we're still doing a lot of work from home, and even after being at the brand for over a year, I'm still meeting people for the first time, even though I've been working with them for over a year. It's the first time you meet them in person. But we had to pivot, if you like, to a digital way of working and a digital way of being able to train all the sales teams and give them all of the seasonal briefings. So One thing, luckily, that we did ahead of time was to introduce a digital selling platform for the sales teams, and exactly like you said, in bygone eras, you would pack up big sample bags full of physical product. You'd print out reams and reams of paper with catalogs, using loads of ink and not being very sustainable or environmentally friendly. So luckily at On, we'd already introduced a digital version of a product catalog, and what it allows you to do is to build all of your product assortments, to tell the seasonal stories for the year in a digital environment. So we produce all of the assets required for that digital app, and the sales teams are basically enabled to go in and build all of the assortments that they want to show to their retailers.
So on the assortments front, what that means is you have a giant, I don't know if it's giant, but like you have a full catalog of products.
Yeah.
And then each region, they might be like, well, we think this is what would sell, so let's build this into our catalog and take this to our local retailers. Is that how it works?
Exactly, yeah. So as any brand, right, they have generally quite a big collection for the season. So in any brand, you're designing product for different end use cases. So you're never going to go to a retailer and show them the whole collection and say, this is our whole collection for the season. What do you think? What do you want to buy? Potentially in the past, that's maybe how sales happen, but it's not a really relevant way of working anymore. I think, especially as competition has become even more fierce, every retailer needs a bit of a niche or has a different viewpoint on the customers that they want to go after. So if you go to a retailer and you just show them everything, it's not a really engaging conversation. And what it actually shows is that you don't necessarily understand their business. So the idea behind planning assortments is that you take the collection and, like you say, you whittle it down until you've got an assortment which is relevant for that retailer that you're going to go and see. So with On, for example, we operate in, first and foremost, the performance running category. Then we have the outdoor category, and we also have a lifestyle category. So if you're going to see a running specialty store, generally speaking, the product that you're going to want to focus on is the performance running product, because that's what their end consumer is shopping for. If you go to that customer and you start showing them trekking boots or hiking boots or, I don't know, lifestyle footwear, immediately you're probably going to lose a bit of respect from the retailer, because basically you don't understand their business, and essentially you're wasting their time. So in sales, that's a really key element is building an engaging assortment for the retailer that you want to sell into.
Cool. And so that's one of. Is there any other digital sort of tools and how you've adapted to, I guess?
Yeah, sorry, went off on a bit of a tangent there, I guess.
That was me. I was like, what does assortments mean? Talk about it.
No,
continue.
For sure. I think like everyone, right? Everything's gone online, and so you're right. Whereas previously we would have had in-person product launches or product briefings, whereby the whole organization comes together, and you have sort of really engaging conversations with each other, and you discuss product. All of that had to move online. So we had to find ways of still getting the seasonal messages across to all of our global teams, but doing it in a digital way. And in some degrees, it's a little bit more efficient maybe, and a little bit more sustainable. So you don't have so many people traveling around. But then I think as well, there's definitely always going to be a case for physical presence in sales conversations. I think even though I'm a massive advocate for digitizing sales processes and, for example, cutting down on samples, cutting down on waste, I think at the end of the day, the world that we're in, the world that I operate in, is a physical product world. And there's always going to be that need for physical product and conversations with people in person, because I just think you can't replicate that digitally, especially in sales where the relationship piece is so key. If you have a good relationship with a retailer, it can open all sorts of doors. And I remember actually when I was working at PVH, a previous company that I used to work for, we brought in digital showrooms as well. So I actually used to work as an account manager as well. So I've been on the sort of receiving end as well. That's actually where my history is and my work experience. And I remember there was a company strategy to roll out completely like digital selling, and I was massively resistant to that change. And we were sort of saying like, oh, they want to replace us with robots, or we're going to be done out of a job. But I think with anything like that, when you're innovating processes and you're taking away maybe more of the, I don't know, like so like grunt work, the lower level stuff. What it actually does is it frees you to be a bit more creative in the way that you're thinking. So whereas you think, okay, I'm going to lose like that aspect, I'm going to lose, working with physical product. But actually what it enables you to do is become more creative and frees up your time to have, I don't know, to strategize or to think longer term, and to actually plan a lot better.
That's a great quote, which I heard sort of recently, and I now try to do with my own work, which is like, if it's not creative work, you should automate it, delegate it, or just get rid of it. Now you can't do that with everything, but for a lot of things you can. And what you find is you want to free up your time to do the really creative stuff, because that's where you get the sort of 10x gains. And also it's just more fun. Like why do the boring stuff which can be automated when you can be doing like fun creative stuff which can add a lot of value? So yeah, fully on board with that. But it's hard, right? It's hard to sort of get over that. I think we were talking earlier about the sort of resistance to the digital change, but like it's coming, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I use my own experience in that sort of space. Like I said, when I was working at PVH, I was super resistant to this digital change. And when I was first introduced to it, I was like, oh, it's never going to work. It's like, you're going to actually like lose customers. You're not going to be able to sell as much product. But then I think you can't escape it, right? Digital innovation. It's like, and I think the more you try and resist it, you're actually sort of doing yourself a disservice. You're actually better just to jump in and even to fail at it and learn from it than you are to just resist it. Because even if the plan that you've got in place, it doesn't necessarily follow that route. Like for sure, you're going to learn so much on that journey, and it's going to enable you to be able to do your job in a lot more of an effective way. So I always think that, and it's something I've learned myself, I've become a lot more open to change, I think. And it's interesting when someone shows you that like change management curve where there's the denial, the resistance, the exception, and then the advocacy at the end. I think maybe I've got a couple of those that are on my round. But for sure, like, yeah, if I scroll back to 2015, which is when I first started working in a more digital way in sales, and I just wouldn't use the tool, to now where I'm having to be an advocate for digital selling. And now I see at On, for example, we've had the tool for a couple of years, and you see different people going through that digital change journey, and like I can empathize with them because I've been there as well myself. So I sort of know what they're going through.
Awesome. Cool. Well, you mentioned a little bit about your journey, and you were like, I was at PVH, which was Tommy Hilfiger. Let's talk a little bit about that journey. Like, how did you end up in account management and then now go to market sales, more of a strategy role, and even just the footwear sort of retail world in general?
Yeah, definitely. And I've been working in footwear specifically now for over 10 years. But before that, I was straight out of high school. I didn't go to university, so went straight out and got a job and got any job that I could find basically. And ended up working at a record label in customer services. So in this is in the UK. So in the UK, we previously had lots of like independent record stores that would sell physical CDs, and we had some big multinational
physical CDs. Yeah.
Physical CDs, yeah, right. Remember those?
Yeah.
And we had some like big key accounts who were like the supermarkets and H&B and stuff like this. But essentially my job was to basically take orders on the phone from these stores, and they would ring up every day, and you would plug in their order before 11 o'clock, and then they would get their delivery the next day. And I think, yeah, as we just discussed, physical CDs, right? Physical music product, that industry drastically started to decline. And I was like, okay, I sort of need to find a route out of this role. Maybe it's probably not going to exist in a year or two. And so I was looking within the record label that I worked in, and I was like, it looks really cool to go and like work in one of the labels. Like that looks really interesting. Like they always seem to be having a lot of fun. And I thought, I'd try and give it a go. But
and the parties and the celebrities.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I was like, I sort of like that side of things, but actually, to be honest with you, I wasn't overly passionate about music. So I was in the completely the wrong industry. And I remember I managed to set up a meeting with one of the label bosses. I'm not quite sure how, but yeah, I went in to see him, and he said, so you love music, do you? You love music and like really enjoy music, everything about it. And I was sat there. I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I live and breathe it. And really, I think he could just tell, right? He could tell I was blagging it. And this actually brings me back to an interesting anecdote about sales. And I know I've got a bit off shoot here, but
I'll keep going. This is the good stuff.
Yeah, but I think in sales, right? If you don't believe in a product, you shouldn't sell it, because you're always going to be able to tell. Someone's always going to be able to tell if you're trying to sell them something that you don't believe in yourself. And I think that's when I realized, I was like, okay, the music industry is probably not for me. What else do I like? I was quite into fashion, and I thought I was quite into like footwear as well. And actually, a guy I used to play football with, he worked at Pentland Group and worked at Ted Baker, and he said, "Oh, we've got this role in the business, and I think you'd be really good at it." And it was in working in the design team, so something completely brand new. So I thought, that sounds really interesting. And yeah, I got the job, and it was an entry level job in design and the product team. So different to what I do now, but really interesting and really broad as well in its scope. So it was working with the designers, working with the factories, like sourcing material for product. And it gave me a really, really good grounding and like education in the footwear industry. And I did that for about 2.5 years. And then I was sort of like looking about, okay, what other area can I move into? I'm not going to become a designer, right? I'm not a designer. I don't have that background, but I'm quite a personable person. Like I like speaking to people. I like building relationships. And so it seemed like quite a natural progression to move into the sales team that we had at the time. So there was a job there that was dealing with all of the independent stores in the UK and Ireland. And at the time we had, I think, over 100 stores. So I took that on and really enjoyed that actually. And yeah, meeting with 100 different accounts every season. So like we said earlier, how 2 seasons a year, 100 accounts would come to the showroom, and you'd show them the collection.
That sounds like a lot. Is that a lot? Is that than?
It is quite a lot. It's quite hefty workload. So there were days where you would see like 7 or 8 different customers in one day, and you'd be like selling the collection to them, showing them the new products. So it's quite fast paced. But yeah, I really enjoyed that sort of connection that you could make with a retailer and find them something that would that would essentially solve a problem for them within their store. That's essentially what sales is. It's not really going for the hard sell. I think when you say sales to people, a lot of people have conjure up this sort of like bad picture in their head of a used car salesman or like someone cold calling you on the phone. And I think, yes, that there is an element of that sales, that type of sales, which is the cut and the run, like get the one sale and move on. But the industry that I'm in, it's really not that. It's not about that. Really what you're trying to do is you're trying to build a relationship, because essentially what you want to do is you want to cultivate that relationship long term. Because if you sell something to someone that you know is going to fail, you need to see that person again in 6 months' time. And then they're going to obviously remember that. And essentially what you're going to do is you're going to damage yourself long term. You might get like a really quick sale, but there's no longevity in it. So
100%. There's on that note, there's another sort of quote that I try to live by, which is you want to play long-term games with long-term people. So we say this quite explicitly with a lot of the customers we work with or potential customers, where we're like, hey, what we're doing right now is helping people buy footwear online, and we will increase your sales, we'll decrease your returns, and your customers will be significantly happier. But we're not just an online shoe sizing platform. We recognize that retailers, not just footwear retailers, but retailers in general, want to use cutting edge technology to deliver these awesome experiences, to drive product efficiencies, make better product, and ultimately make more money, but add value to customers for a long time. And that's where we see ourselves playing. So it's like we're doing this now, but we're here for like 20 years. And the like Hoka 11, that company's not going away. They're here for 20 years, and Viva Barefoot's here for 20 years. So and that's why we want to work with these companies. We're like, hey, let's build a long-term relationship, and really you get compounding interest in the relationship and in the value that you can both bring each other. So absolutely play long-term games with long-term people, right?
Yeah, it's 100% that, and it's like what I say. You're not just selling and cutting and running. Essentially, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find a solution to a problem that the retailer has, essentially. And the retailer might not necessarily know that they have that problem, but that's essentially your job as an account manager or working in sales. So it all comes back to building like relationships and building trust and integrity. So yeah, like I say, you should never sell something to someone that you personally don't believe in or that you know is going to fail. And definitely not in our industry anyway.
On the belief part as well, because when you were saying it struck a chord with me, because early on in like 4 years ago at StrutFit, when we were like still part-time, I was like, I felt resistance, and when like I went to like I wasn't selling as much as I should have been. Not that the product itself wasn't selling, it's just like me personally, I wasn't putting as much effort to sort of drive it forward. And I'm just a quote machine today. Another quote is, the first principle is that you mustn't fool yourself, and you're the easiest person to fool. Like, we lie to ourselves all the time. And the lie I was telling myself was that I sort of believed in the product, but I had niggling doubts about like accuracy and whether we were like truly impacting sales or we were truly impacting returns. And once I realized that, I was like, oh shit, like I need to answer these questions for myself. So I can and I was scared to ask those questions, because I'm like, well, what if we're not adding value in sales? What if we're not adding, which is dumb, because as soon as you realize that you're like, cool, let's fix it. So we are adding value. So as soon as I realized that, we're like, here are the questions I need answered. Let's answer them. And when we answered them, then I was like instantly like insanely more belief. Like, we've done surveys with so many retailers now on people who use StrutFit and purchase. 30% of them attribute their sale to StrutFit. So we're like, that's like such a high number, and now we can like sing that praise and really go out and sell the product. Like, we know we reduce returns by 30% on StrutFit orders. So really getting to a place where if you realize you don't believe in the product, it's like, well, why? Like you just might not like, you might not like music. But if it's something that you want to sell and you're like, well, why don't I believe in it? Like, ask yourself those questions, answer them, and then the quality of experience for both you as a seller and the other person as a buyer is like profoundly different.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. where did we get to? I think I was still at Pentland.
We took a detour into why sales is required, and really, I think if done properly, an honorable profession. And yeah, we got to Pentland and 100 accounts from there.
Yes. So I worked on those 100 accounts for, I think it was about a year and a half, and then had an opportunity to start working with some larger accounts, some key accounts at PVH. So working for PVH, who own Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein. So yeah, I made the move there in, I think it was 2015 or 17, can't remember now. But yeah, moved there, and completely different sort of type of business, if you like. And like I say, working with different retailers. So moving from, I call them independent accounts. Some people call them field accounts or mom and pop stores. These are one or two doors, and then moving to working on key accounts like big national chains, like in the UK, like Shoe and Foot Asylum and ASOS, for example, who's a massive e-com giant, basically. So yeah, it was a pivot into working with these different types of accounts. And again, these accounts need a different approach as well, because they're operating entirely differently. So that was an interesting challenge, and we managed to massively grow actually the Tommy Hilfiger footwear business in the UK at the time. When I joined, it was at the start, if you like, of the 90s mania. Logo hype was coming back again, and Tommy Hilfiger massively lends itself to that trend because they were so relevant in that space and so authentic. And at the time, the footwear collection that we had just wasn't really that relevant for the UK market. So there's a globally designed collection that we had, and alongside the guy I worked with at the time, my manager, we basically just used to get the shoes and then cut out Tommy Hilfiger flags and stick them on the shoes and send them to the product team and say, this is really what we want for the UK market. And I think that they basically got sick of us and constantly asking for this. And there was this massive trend bubbling under. Often in the UK, trends bubble under a bit quicker than the rest of the world, if you like, as well. So we had this exposure, and we could really see it coming. So we were almost trying to design our own collection because we knew that that's the way that we were gonna grow the business.
Interesting. So there's this feedback from sales, because you guys are on the ground, you're talking to the retailers, so you're taking what you're hearing there and feeding that back into product.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it can work sort of differently in certain brands, but exactly like you say, the sales teams are the guys on the ground, right? They're the eyes and the ears of the organization. Often they'll hear anecdotal information. They'll know what's going on maybe with some other brands. They'll know what's going on with a certain retailer. And that feedback loop is quite vital in the business. So yeah, we basically, that's what we did. And then by the end of it, I think, yeah, like I say, they probably got a bit sick of us just cutting out paper flags and sticking them on shoes and saying, this is what we want, basically. We got it. We managed to bring them around. And I guess that's an example of selling, but selling internally as well. So we had to sort of sell this idea to the organization. We had to tell them exactly like why we wanted it and why it's important. And you show them, you sort of like have to lead with a bit of a carrot, if you like, the carrot and stick. It's like, okay, these are the retailers we can potentially get in if we get this type of product. So the job of sales isn't just selling to people that buy your product. It's selling a vision or selling an idea internally as well. And it's all about how you go about that and how you approach it. So.
Yeah. If you abstract sales to the convincing or the portraying of an idea to someone else, then like everything is storytelling and everything is sales.
Yeah,
It's like
100%.
down to like dating people. Like that's technically kind of sales.
Yeah, everything's sales and everything's a negotiation in a way, I guess you could say.
100%.
No, yeah. So then, from PVH, I was there for almost 4 years, and then had the opportunity to move out to Italy and work for VF Corporation. So they have their European headquarters in Switzerland, which is just over the border. So made a move out to Italy in 2019, I think that was.
And what was the name of the place you were staying at? Because it looked beautiful.
Lake Como. So yeah,
Lake
it's
Como.
like a very desirable tourist destination. I still miss the view, but it was a beautiful place.
It's amazing.
But yeah, moved to VF Corporation to work on Timberland, and worked on the two strategic e-commerce accounts, so Zalando and ASOS for Timberland in Europe. And it was at that time, I think I'd worked on e-commerce accounts before, and I realized that the biggest, or one of the biggest pains when you're working in e-commerce is returns, right? You can have anywhere up to 50% of your sales actually coming back to you as a business. And so I was working at Timberland, and I think you reached out to me, and I think you were interested about how we sort of managed it at Timberland, and we got to talking, and basically decided to work together, right?
Yeah, that was awesome. I mean, you landed currently one of our biggest clients, Deckers. So yeah, that was very fortuitous, and it was awesome to have worked with you on that.
Yeah, 100%. I think the first time when I spoke to you, it was clear, like, right, I really believed in and still believe in StrutFit, and I could just see that it's something which is massively required in the industry, and I'd seen that firsthand, so I completely understood the problem that retailers have with footwear returns, and like you say, yeah, it was great landing the Deckers account. I think was definitely a highlight, I think, for both of us. Like that was cool as well, because that was for me, it was going from selling physical product to selling a digital product, right? And I think in some of our first conversations, much like I'm doing now, is you were saying like, oh yeah, we'll just integrate the API, and I was like, I have no idea what that means. I know what IPA is, but I have no idea what an API is, right? So it's massive, like,
IPA is significantly more delicious.
And it was a huge learning curve, but I learned like so much in just over the year that we were working together, and approaching sales from a completely different angle, right? It was more. So I think in the past, my roles have been selling products that people are already aware of, and they're aware that they need those products. But selling StrutFit was something completely brand new. Selling a digital platform that can tell you exactly what shoe size your customer needs to buy, to try and articulate that in a sales appointment was a lot more challenging, I think. But then I think as well, you need it always helps when you're selling to a customer who has like a bit more vision, I suppose, and is a bit more like open to those sorts of conversations, which I think is what we found obviously with Deckers, right?
Yeah, 100%. So your roles as account manager and now I guess also your role with StrutFit, how has that fed into your role now, which is I guess more at a higher level, right? You're helping account managers manage their local accounts. So what has that transition been like? And there might be account managers listening who also want to make that transition. So I guess, how did you make the transition, and what are things which were useful in that transition from the previous roles?
Yeah, for sure. And I think I was always from my first role in footwear when I was at Pentland, it was a bit more. It was like more product focused, right, and less on the ground. So that sort of thing always still really appealed to me. Being back in the engine, if you like, of the brand, and being a bit closer to these internal functions that are like creating the collections. But I think the main thing that helps me in my role now is that I can really empathize with sales teams, and I know what some of their challenges are, just through my own experience. I've been there, and I've been in sales appointments when, I don't know, you get shoes thrown at you, you get like catalogs thrown at you.
You get shoes thrown at you? My God. All right, this is why digital product's better. No one's throwing a digital product at you.
But yeah, for sure. Like, and that all comes back. That's a learning curve as well, right? It's about how you approach different personalities and how you approach.
I can't believe they're throwing shows at you. It reminds me of that press conference with George Bush, and someone throws a shoe at him, and then they take off the other shoe and they throw the other shoe at him, and he just dodges it both times.
I would say if you're an account manager or you work in sales and you haven't had a shoe thrown at you, then you're doing something wrong, basically.
Oh my God, this is hilarious. Any account managers listening, can you confirm that this is a thing, that this happens to you? Oh my God. All right.
So yeah, I think that massively helps me, right? And I've been there when, I don't know, orders haven't been delivered in full, and like your account is like screaming out at you. It's sort of, where's the stock? Like, how am I going to manage? But I've been there on the good side as well. I'm not saying like everything. You're not getting shoes thrown at you, and you're not getting people screaming down the phone every day. Those are extreme edge cases. But I think that really helps me to empathize with sales teams. So I've been there. I've been in the field. I've been in the showrooms in difficult situations. So part of my role now is to I guess to try and prevent some of those situations happening, and give the sales teams all of the tools that and resources that they need to prevent that from happening.
On the tools front, we spoke previously around digital adoption, and I imagine a lot of people in these roles have been in these roles for a long time. Like they've been selling shoes to retailers for a long time. And you mentioned also that you are now having to do a bit more digital advocacy. Let's get specific and talk about maybe not specific instances, but what are sort of techniques you've used to help your account managers adopt this technology that would be good for them, but perhaps you're facing some resistance on? Because I think the reason I ask is I think a lot of people will be going through this now. Like we've in the last 2 years and going forward, we have seen and we will see a lot more digital sort of disruption, and it's coming, like it's here and it's coming. So people will, I guess, need all the help they can get. So yeah, specifically, what have you been doing?
I think one of the things that I learned at PVH when we started to roll out digital tools and selling is it's important to approach it from a top down and a bottom up way. So it's important to get in at the grassroots. So naturally, what you'll find in organizations is that you'll just have people who are more open to innovation and more open to that way of working. What you could do is identify these grassroots users who are more open to innovation and give the tool to them and let them like really run with it. And then essentially what you find out is that rather than you being more, I guess, authoritarian and saying to sales teams, oh, you have to use this is the way you need to work, they would just naturally see their peers using it, and they will see the benefits that it's bringing to those peers. So that's one thing that you can do. You can start like a super user program, for example. You can give the responsibility to the people who are a lot more open to that change. And then naturally what you start to see adoption slowly ramp up rather than going at it from an authoritarian standpoint. I think the other thing that you have to do is you have to involve the sales team in the conversations, right? So you have to be open to suggested developments and ways of changing the tool so that it matches their needs. And the most impactful thing that you can do is take a suggestion from someone in the sales team and implement it as quickly as possible and show that you're open to this feedback loop, right? So essentially what that does is it gives them a bigger sense of responsibility for making the digital tools work in a better way, because they naturally feel a lot more connected to it, and they naturally feel that they have more input on the way that the tool is going to shape their role. So I would say like those two things together are really quite strong enablers. And I think the other thing that you need as well is you need the top-down approach, right? You need the buy-in across the business. So you need management, for example, to be on board with digital selling, because essentially what you have is if you've got someone who's resistant to change in a team and they don't see the buy-in from higher up the chain, then naturally as well they won't buy into it. It's like anything, right? It's like we spoke about. You have to believe in it throughout the value chain for people to buy into it. So I think that element is really important as well. You need advocacy all throughout the business. So you need it from the top and the bottom, and then the people in the middle will naturally start to grow and learn with it. But I think the other thing as well is like making the availability of the tool to the teams and making it as user friendly as possible. And you can essentially, what you can do is say you want to bring in a digital tool because you want to reduce your samples. You wouldn't from the start just completely remove all of your samples from a showroom and then hand someone an iPad and say, there you go, like go ahead and start selling your collections, because that change is just way too drastic for anyone to get on board with. But what you could do is introduce your digital tool and then slowly start to cut down a percentage of the samples within the showroom. And so naturally you still have you still have like a safety net there, if you like, of the way that things were previously done. But what you see is that the samples will just start to become used less and less and less. They're still super important in the sales process. Like I said earlier, I don't think we'll ever go to being in the industry like 100% digital, because I think especially on like everything we do is based on innovation and technology and premium materials. So we still want to show that product in a physical sense, but I think the reliance on the physical product, the samples themselves will go down. So for example, like we might not sample every single colorway in a new model. So whereas previously you would have sampled everything, have it in the showroom, look at all the colors. You could, for example, sample one colorway and then look at the rest on the digital tool.
Nice. Cool. I'm just looking at my notes. Is there anything else? Oh, actually, I had a question regarding, so we're talking about the whole point of the show is to sort of educate and break down silos. The other form of silos, which I think you're in a unique position to comment on, is sort of the department silos, right? You got sales, you got marketing, you'll have manufacturing, and so on. And you said you work across all these different operations. So what are like specific ways that you found to help this collaboration? Because I've seen instances where it doesn't go so well, and it's a shame because you can see the potential of like what a well-oiled and a well collaborative machine would look like. So yeah, how have you found that experience, and what would be tips that you would have for other people in the sort of role that they're trying to bring together these different silos?
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing that's definitely helped me work effectively cross-functionally is my experience in sales, because you have to wear so many different hats. Basically, you have to speak to so many different departments, and then within those departments, you've naturally got different personality traits, right, and types that fit those sorts of departments. And it's similar in sales in a way. Like I said earlier, you've got loads of different retailers with different objectives in mind. So you're always conscious of going into conversations or approaching the way that you work with this in mind. So when you work with, I don't know, a marketing department, you wouldn't take the same approach as you would when you're speaking to, I don't know, operations or like forecasting or something like this. Like, you really have to adapt your communication style, and you have to be aware of, okay, like I say, personality type. So what does that department or person, what's important to them, and how can you frame a conversation around what's important to them in order to work effectively together? So I think that would be probably number one, is you have to be a bit of a chameleon in a way. And whereas you always know what it is that you want to achieve or what you need, you can't necessarily always go straight for the for the kill, if you like. You have to be conscious that they're also going to have their own objectives, and it's a question of, okay, how can you like merge the two together, if you like? How can you find the synergy between the two?
And the keyword really is synergy there, right? Like, I've heard you use the term chameleon, and it's kind of right, because you do have to adapt the manner in which you communicate depending on who you're communicating with. And I've heard historically people call that as like manipulative, like, hey, you're like trying to manipulate the person. And it's like, well, not really. Like, all you're trying to do is speak in a way which is like most efficient for this communication to occur, such that like everybody wins, right?
Yeah, 100%. And as well, you see it with different cultures as well. So we're a global team. So we work with Asia, we work in America, and we work across Europe. So we have wholesale teams across the world. So it's the same there as well. You have to be really conscious of the cultural nuances.
Nuances like not calling them Swedish when they're Danish.
Yes, 100%.
I should have known. I've seen Vikings. I should have known better. I think I came up with that joke on the spot, so I think I'm proud of the the idea, maybe not the execution.
Don't worry.
Now is a late part of the podcast to come to it, but On Running, tell us a little bit about On Running, and how many times have you played tennis with Roger Federer?
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't really want to embarrass myself, to be honest. Tennis is not my best sport, but yeah. I mean, working at On, I think what first attracted me to On as a brand is, before I started working there, was just that they were doing something completely different in the industry. It was a completely new concept, I think, and everything that we do it On comes back to innovation. And
so what specifically, what was new and different?
It was the fact that it was a completely new concept, right? So our proprietary technology is the clouds, so the sole unit that all of our products are based on. And essentially what that allows for is soft landings with explosive takeoffs. So when you're running, it's the impact of your foot hitting the ground is softer, and then the energy which is built up pushes you off to propel you in a more effective way. And it's something which I saw in the market, and I just felt was really innovative and completely different. Just even from the look of the sole unit. So we have the individual clouds on the sole unit. It's completely new. Like there's nothing else like it on the market.
Running on clouds. That's so good.
100%. Yeah. And I think the way in which On approach their strategy, their marketplace strategy as well is completely different. We're a premium brand. We sell to premium retailers at a premium price point, right? So that is really at the heart of it. And yeah, I've worked at brands before where it's just sell as much product as you can into the market, hit the numbers, just do whatever you have to do to hit your quarter or to hit your year end. Whereas I feel like On is in a very privileged position at the moment, whereby we do sales in what I would say is the right way. And it comes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like not selling products to somebody that doesn't need that product, right? It's we're lucky we have like the demand there, and I feel like that's what really attracted me to On. It's sort of a completely new concept, completely innovative product, and yeah, just doing things differently, doing things not adhering to the industry standard, if you like. And I think that's what makes us stand out as a brand as well.
Dope. Is there a product called Cloud9? Because if there isn't, they should make one. Because then it would just be on Cloud9.
On Cloud9? No, there isn't actually. There isn't. But
there you go.
I can take that. I can take that feedback if you like.
Pitch it internally. Take 20%. Cool. I think that's everything I had, Hans. And do you have anything else to add, or should we wrap up?
I think all good from my side. But yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Awesome, man. Thanks very much for joining us. What I'll do is I'll leave your details. I mean, people have your name, but I'll leave your details in the show notes as well. And if people want to reach out and have a deeper conversation, I'm sure you'd be open to that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Cheers, man.
Cool. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me for this episode of The StrutFit Show. I've been your host, Ang Nair. And if you enjoyed it, if you found some parts where you were like, this has added some value to my life, then please share it with a few other people that you think would also value this information or that snippet. And when they like it as much as you did, I'm sure they'll thank you. If you're interested in what we're doing at StrutFit, head to our website at www.strut.fit to learn more and get in touch with us. If you want to get in contact with me directly, you can reach me at ang@strut.fit. All right, that's all, folks. Till next time, take care.